protecting pro-lifers. Lawmakers debate a measure that would penalize those who damage churches and pro-life pregnancy centers. We have a report and analysis. Stepping down. Prime Minister Boris Johnson bows to critics and resigns. What's next for the United Kingdom? Energy woes. A closer look at claims the Biden administration's policies are hurting the U.S. economy. And Pamplona Pomp, a traditional Spanish festival dedicated to a Catholic saint, makes a comeback from coronavirus. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, July 7th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. 4 Catholic churches in Wisconsin have been vandalized in recent days. Graffiti left on parish grounds at one of the churches included pro-abortion language and a verse from the Old Testament. One suspect was caught on camera and a person of interest has been identified. Meanwhile, vandalism also strikes a pro-life pregnancy center, this one in St. Paul, Minnesota. Police say windows at Birthright were broken and the building was tagged with pro-abortion slogans. A volunteer says the center counsels women in unplanned pregnancies. Well, these are just the latest in a string of attacks on Catholic churches and pro-life pregnancy centers. The disturbing trend began weeks ago and shows no signs of slowing down. Now, a pro-life congressman is introducing a bill that could help to prosecute the attackers. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more.
We've all seen the videos and pictures of the pro-life pregnancy care centers being attacked by pro-abortion groups. Now, New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith says something has to be done to protect those centers and the pregnant women who use them. So he's planning to introduce a bill to make those who attack them face stiffer penalties.
The movement has always cared deeply about the women, the mothers, and the babies. We love them both.
Republican Chris Smith has been a strong advocate for the pro-life movement. He tells me the increased attacks on pregnancy care centers has caused him to write a bill making those who attack centers not only face hate crime charges, but violators must also pay for the damage they caused.
Pregnancy care centers are so unique. They're there for the women and for their babies. It's all selflessness on steroids, love and compassion, radiating the love of Christ to people who are vulnerable. And then the abortionists are out there breaking their windows and spray painting them and doing all kinds of other things. It's outrageous.
He's not alone. Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina is demanding a hearing saying, quote, "We must examine the disturbing trend of rising left-wing violence and conduct oversight over the federal government's response to this growing threat." These efforts come after a new letter signed by the radical abortion groups Jane's Revenge declares open season on pregnancy care centers. Meanwhile, Democrats say the Biden administration needs to examine ways to make abortion on demand available nationwide, despite the U.S. Supreme Court recently overturning Roe versus Wade.
Well, he should open up abortion clinics on federal land. That's one thing he can absolutely do. I appreciate him stepping up and saying that we need to carve out a part of the filibuster so that we could codify Roe v. Wade, but we need to talk about getting rid of the filibuster.
Other Democrats, like Senator Elizabeth Warren, want to get rid of those pregnancy care centers altogether in her state of Massachusetts. Democrats plan to bring up the issue next week when they return. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
And joining me now to discuss is Chris Bedford, senior editor at the Federalist and co-founder of RightForge. Chris, welcome back. Always great to see you. We have a lot to talk about today, but first, as we just heard from Eric, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she wants to shut down all crisis pregnancy centers in her state of Massachusetts. And separately, she has also made comments basically saying that the pregnancy centers are deceptive and even harmful. Your reaction?
It's really exposing exactly what the senator and a lot of her allies who are very, very pro-abortion actually think. For the past couple of weeks and since the original leak to the decision on Dobbs has come out, a lot of the pro-abortionists have said repeatedly, well, I hope that you Christians and you people who are anti-abortion are prepared to help these women, are prepared to help people in these difficult parts of their lives, are prepared to support children and take care of them and make sure that folks have the resources to try and raise children happily and with good counseling. But that was disingenuous from the very beginning. So many aspects of this, and you can really see it if you have the misfortune of going by the Supreme Court lately, not too far from here. So many aspects of this seem demonic and extremely anti-human. If they were interested in actually trying to help people, or they're interested in Christians and Catholics trying to help people, they wouldn't be firebombing clinics, they wouldn't be attacking them, they wouldn't be trying to outlaw them, and they wouldn't be trying to shut them down. What these centers do is they provide a great help to the community. One in their local neighborhood has been vandalized. Police have had to guard it now. And all they do is hand out diapers and other supplies and counseling and work with women through a difficult time. And then after they have their kid, give them that support. To hate that shows you what kind of person Senator Warren is.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, all of these pro-life pregnancy centers, many of them in churches, have been vandalized recently. It's really shameful. And now Representative Chris Smith is working on a bill, as we mentioned, to prosecute those responsible for those crimes. Chris, I want to get your thoughts on that. And what else, if anything, do you think needs to be done? I mean, do you think between this bill and the FBI, do you think people will be held accountable?
Not as many as I would certainly like, because this is not being treated to the level it should. This bill is a good kind of step, and I would like to see it passed and made law. But above all, you need the Department of Justice to investigate this. Despite having two of the most high-ranking Catholics in the entire planet in charge of our House of Representatives and the White House, or at least self-professed Catholics, this hasn't been taken seriously for what it is, which is a concentrated terror campaign across the country to hit churches, to hit sacred symbols, to hit crisis pregnancy centers where people are trying to help, to hit charities, and to target Catholics and other Christians who are out there on the front lines. It's designed to put fear into our communities. That's why members of the Knights of Columbus all across the country have been showing up at clinics to help people out, centers to help people out and stand there, or guarding the host. That's why a church I was at this Sunday in Annapolis had a sign that said, after 15 minutes, the doors will be locked to stop protests from coming in, and had security at the door. This is an attack against all of us. It's designed to put fear in the community. It's not working, but it would be very nice to have some more support from the federal government on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to switch gears here, Chris. The Federalist, as you know, is reporting that the White House press corps is made up of 12 Democrats to every one Republican. Is this something that surprises you at all? And also, what type of impact do you think that lack of political diversity has on reporting and the information, or maybe lack thereof, that the American people are receiving?
We were able to get that from research that Ari Fleischer, the former White House spokesman for George W. Bush, was doing for his new book on the nature of the press in Washington, D.C. The only thing that surprises me is there weren't more Democrats than that compared to Republicans. In Washington, D.C., a city that's 95% or so voted against Donald Trump, it's a very ideologically puritanical city where people don't have dissenting viewpoints, and those who do are drummed out. The White House press corps is just like that. And this is a problem. You mentioned this a moment ago, the ideological diversity here. There is none. If you walk into the average press room, the elite press room of the New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, MSNBC, you might have a group of people that by the skin color, skin deep, look like they're reflective of the American people. But if you ask who in this place goes to church on Sunday, who here even voted for, let's say not Donald Trump, who here voted for Mitt Romney or John McCain, you're going to get very, very few hands going up. And because of that, those questions don't get asked. Because they don't reflect the actual concerns of half of the American people, the questions don't get asked that would be of concern to those people. Because of that, this media, because of this lack of ideological diversity, fails to serve the American people the way they should. And that's reflected in the poll numbers of how the American people look at them now.
Yeah, Chris, so much going on right now. A lot I'd love to talk about. We're running out of time. Before I let you go, though, I'm curious, what else are you following?
I'm going to be following some of the local races and some of the way that the law and order is playing out right now. Mitch McConnell has made it clear in the last week or so that he plans to move away from some of the cultural issues that we've just been talking about tonight that are going on in our country. But I don't think the country is going to let him move away from that. I think those are some of the driving factors that are going on right now in our world. And those are what I'll be following going into this November election, for how long, the longevity that they're going to have in our political scene.
Oh, Chris, always great to get your insights. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
With Roe versus Wade gone, pro-life states look to end abortion, but they face opposition from from President Joe Biden. He tweeted continued support for abortion access across the nation in defiance of his Catholic faith. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Tracy, President Joe Biden is once again demanding that Roe be codified into law, that the filibuster not stand in the way, and he's issuing a stern warning to states.
The president's tweet says, if extremist governors try to block a woman from traveling from a state that prohibits her from seeking the medical help she needs to a state that provides that care, we will act to protect her bedrock rights. The pro-life group March for Life counters the overturning of Roe has returned the ability to protect the unborn back to the American people through their elected officials both federally and in the states. Meanwhile, President Biden hosted an awards ceremony today, giving 17 people the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor.
An extraordinary group of Americans up here on this stage that I have the honor to recognize today.
The recipients include Olympian Simone Biles and Catholic religious sister Simone Campbell.
Today, Sister Simone remains a beacon of light. She's the embodiment of a covenant of trust, hope, and progress of our nation. And I'm happy to call her my friend.
Sister Campbell previously made headlines for supporting the contraceptive mandate in Obamacare, which goes against Catholic Church teaching on birth control. Catholic organizations, including EWTN, had to sue to block the mandate and protect their religious freedom. The White House is also tracking the case of American basketball star Brittney Griner, who was jailed in Russia. She faces up to 10 years in prison after pleading guilty to drug possession. A U.S. Embassy official said Griner is doing well under the circumstances.
Most important, I was able to share with Ms. Griner a letter from President Biden, and Ms. Griner was able to read that letter.
Also tonight, National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby says Russia is, quote, wrongfully detaining Brittney under intolerable circumstances. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has resigned. He made that announcement earlier today after more than 46 lawmakers in his party left the government amid scandals.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now.
The 58-year-old said he is immensely proud of the work his government achieved. That includes a successful exit for Britain from the European Union and a strong vaccines program to fight COVID-19. He wants to remain prime minister until a successor is in place. Well, the European Union's parliament has approved a resolution to condemn the overturning of Roe versus Wade. The resolution also calls on member nations to amend the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights to say, quote, everyone has a right to safe and legal abortion. The resolution is not expected to affect specific laws governing abortion in the European Union. At least 22 people were killed in Burkina Faso earlier this week after an attack by suspected terrorists. A local priest tells Aid to the Church in Need that many of the victims were Christians and some were killed in front of a church. The presidents of Rwanda and Congo have agreed to a ceasefire.
Tivemos progressos positivos.
Angola's president announced the agreement which he helped to broker. The de-escalation calls for restored diplomatic relations and unconditional immediate withdrawal of a rebel group from eastern Congo. Recent conflicts between the two nations have displaced more than 170,000 people. Coming up, analysis of the problems facing the U.S. and global economies. According to AAA, the national average for a gallon of regular unleaded gas in the United States is now $4.75. That is down slightly from a week ago. And while that may seem like good news, some economists are concerned that the drop in oil prices could indicate more economic troubles to come. And joining us now to discuss is Joel Griffith, Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Joel, welcome back. Great to be with you as always. Let's talk a little bit more about this drop in gas prices. I noticed it myself as I was traveling over the 4th of July holiday, driving from here in the D.C. area up to New England, and I was, pleasantly surprised. That said, why are we seeing this drop in prices right now?
Well, thanks for having me. Well, if you look at what's been going on in the economy, we're all feeling it. It is beginning to slow down. The economy shrank in the first quarter, and the data now indicate that the economy shrank in the second quarter as well. So what that indicates is that we see demand diminishing for goods, for services, and also for gasoline. And that is why we've seen oil prices drop by around 15% over the last few weeks. But of course, gas prices are still about twice as expensive now as they were about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and something else pretty curious. Reuters is reporting that more than 5 million barrels of oil, which were released from the U.S. emergency reserves, well, they were shipped overseas. What else can you tell us about this, Joel? And why would we do something like that, especially now, when our nation is battling such high gas prices?
Well, from day one, President Biden has declared war on the fossil fuel industry, blocking off land, killing pipelines, stopping refineries from being built. And then when gas prices surged, he pulled a political stunt. And that was releasing millions of barrels of oil from our strategic national reserves. And those national reserves, they're not there to manipulate prices. Those national reserves of oil are there to protect us in case of an attack by an enemy or a natural disaster. What President Biden did was release that oil, or a good part of it, into the marketplace, and millions of barrels of oil from our strategic national reserves have actually ended up in the Communist Party of China, one of our enemies. That's a national embarrassment that should never have happened. And by the way, releasing that oil had almost no impact on oil prices. Oil prices continued to increase after he made that announcement, after the oil began to flow. And in fact, the entirety of the national reserves, that only accounts for about 9 days worth of oil.
Yeah, Joel, let me ask you this question. What can be done to lower these gas prices? What can be done that does not involve depleting our strategic oil reserves? It's something we don't want to do.
Well, gas prices and oil prices can come down in one or two ways. Either we have an economic recession where demand falls and people use less, which is not what we want, or we increase our supply. We have hundreds of years worth of oil, natural gas, and coal buried in our country, hundreds of years worth. It is time to unleash our energy sector. There's no reason why we can't continue to take road trips, family vacations. There's no reason why we can't have our air on in the summer and the heat in the winter. We can do that. It can be done affordably, but we have to allow our private sector to do so. And when you have an administration saying that they want to bankrupt these businesses in the next 10 to 20 years, that deters investment. We need to stop the war on our energy sector.
Yeah, and Joel, I have to tell you, with gas prices, food prices, inflation, everything up, things really do seem pretty bleak right now for the American people. That said, I'm wondering, are there any bright spots? Final thoughts from you.
Well, the bright spots are that the American people are waking up. They're starting to connect the dots between all the spending that we've done. $7 trillion worth of spending in the last 2 years. And of course, we've had our central bank print a lot of that money. People are starting to understand there's no such thing as a free lunch. When you have the government print money and spend money, well, that results in higher prices. And I really do think that come Election Day, the American people are going to have their say, and we might see the ship turned around.
All right, and we are going to leave it right there. Thank you so much, Joel. We always appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Up next, learn more about an initiative this Sunday to pray for those who work on the sea. Many Christian communities around the world will come together this Sunday to celebrate and commemorate those who work on the sea. In many parts of the world, the second Sunday in July is referred to as Sea Sunday. The initiative began in England back in 1975. It asked the faithful to remember seafarers, their families, and to pray for their safety doing dangerous but very vital work. Joining us now from Rome is Father Bruno Ciceri, director of Stella Maris International. Father Bruno, thank you for joining us today. If you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit more about this Sea Sunday, why it began, and what celebrations will be taking place this year?
Yes, in the civil society there are different celebrations for the seafarers, but this Sea Sunday is more related to Christian denomination, and it started in the early 70s when the different Christian denominations, they decided to get together and say we have to have one day to celebrate and to pray for the seafarers, for the work that they are doing, because their hard work and their sacrifice, they are making our life more easy and comfortable. There will be different celebration in different ports, in different centers around the world. It's been already a tradition that is very well established, and so all around the world there will be this celebration in the churches. There will be prayer, there will be masses offered for the seafarers and their families.
And Father, for those who may not be familiar, would you mind telling us about, what life is like for those who earn a living on ships at sea and what it's like right now?
As I was saying, it's a very difficult life and a life full of sacrifices. First of all, they have to live far from their family because the contract is between 9 to 12 months, but during the pandemic, some of them they had to extend the contract up to 18 or 24 months. So these people, they cannot be with their family, with their children when there are particular occasions such as First Communion, graduation, also when there are difficult times, for example, when the children, they get sick, or also when within the family and the relatives there is a death. He cannot be there to mourn with their family and other things. So they live far from their loved ones.
Father, before I let you go quickly, can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that your organization is working on right now?
Yes, of course, the pandemic has changed drastically our way of doing the ministry, because we used to go on the port, we used to go on board of the ship, and so with the restriction caused by the pandemic, this cannot be done anymore, or is done with a lot of difficulties. So we are trying to adapt our services for them, and so we are using much more the mass media. Another project that we are doing is the training of our chaplain. We have already done 3 pilot projects, one in Europe, one in the Indian Ocean, and at the beginning of September we will have it in the Philippines. And after these 3 pilot projects, we are planning to roll out the formation training for all the chaplains of Stella Maris around the world. Another project that we want to realize, because in 2020 we were supposed to celebrate the centennial of the foundation of Stella Maris in Glasgow, but because of the pandemic we were forced to cancel. Now we might be able to have a small celebration this year and to celebrate together what Stella Maris has achieved until now in this more 100 years of services.
Well, Father, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We appreciate it. Father Bruno Ciceri, director of Stella Maris International. Thank you again, Father. And finally tonight, thousands of people in Pamplona, Spain have turned out for the first time in 2 years to honor their first bishop and patron saint, Saint Fermin. The colorful 8-day festival features a procession of Saint Fermin's statue through the city. Many wear red scarves to symbolize his blood shed as a martyr. His intercession is invoked for those who participate in the city's renowned Running of the Bulls. The festival returned following a 2-year pause due to the coronavirus pandemic. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.